You know those days when it's like the worst day of your life? Or maybe you're thinking, how did I even get here? Or where did my life come to? Yeah, not getting into medical school is definitely one of those days, or weeks, or years. I didn't get into medical school the first time I applied. I didn't get into medical school the second time I applied. It took me 3 times to get into medical school, and it was not an easy process. And so I want to be here to encourage you. Don't give up. If you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a physician, if that is your goal, then it is the time to chase it. And so if you don't get in your first time or your second time, it's okay. There are people in my class that are in that same situation that are finally here in medical school. So here are some tips for you to reassess your application and reassess yourself moving forward in the application process. Rule number 1, leave your ego at the door. You have to truly assess yourself from a holistic standpoint. If you think to yourself, oh, I'm pretty good in this aspect, or I am pretty decent at this aspect, and you don't look at yourself truthfully, then that's your first roadblock into getting into medical school, because then you can't focus on the key aspects of your application that may need improvement. So that brings me to rule number 2. Let's take our application and look at it sectionally so we can see where we actually need improvement. The first one, everyone's going to say it, the MCAT. Do you have a good MCAT grade? Look at where you lie in your percentile. Are you in the bottom 50th percent? Are you in the top 50th percent? That's one thing in the MCAT score that can easily be fixed. Spending time studying it. I'll make another video on study tips for MCAT, but for now you have to look at where you stand. Look at other schools and their MCAT numbers and their matriculant MCAT scores and see where you lie competitively in those MCAT ranges. Are you in a competitive range or are you not? And you have to truly look at yourself and say, am I there yet, or do I have some work to do? The second thing, your GPA. Everyone looks at your GPA. It's just a number. But sadly, once you've graduated from college, there's not much you can do with your GPA. So unless you want to do a master's program or explore graduate opportunities to take additional coursework, GPA may be set in stone for some people, but don't let that be a deterrent. There are plenty of opportunities in your application to explain a low or below average GPA, and I've seen plenty of students get into medical school with below average GPAs. The third thing that I want you to look at in your application is your personal statement. It's easy. Make sure you read over it multiple times. I had over 5 people read mine just to look at grammatical mistakes. Let's see if it makes sense. At the end of the day, just make sure you believe in your personal statement. It's something that you should truly believe in no matter what anyone else thinks about it, because everyone has their own writing styles. Everyone else has a certain way of phrasing things, or maybe a better way or a worse way. But at the end of the day, if you believe in your personal statement, if it reflects you, then that's all you could ask for. And you really just want to make sure you give these medical schools a true representation of who you are. And so let your writing speak for that. Let these people that read it, just make sure it flows and makes sense and grammatically works. Don't make them change how you're trying to tell your story. Okay, you've finished the application now. You've looked at MCAT, you've looked at GPA, you've looked at personal statement. So moving on, now how can you have maybe other people assess where you stand? One of the biggest things that individuals don't do, that I'm shocked they don't do after they don't get accepted into medical school, please, please, please promise me you contact the medical schools that you didn't get accepted to, or at least a handful of them if you applied to a lot. People don't know that these medical schools will actually tell you areas to improve in. So if they go, your MCAT was good, your GPA was good, but we kind of didn't get where your personal statement was coming from. Or maybe they really loved your application, just your MCAT was too low. If the school's telling you that, you should be taking that at face value, because they have no reason to lie to you. If anything, they want you to go out and become better and then reapply. And then they get the kind of applicant that they want. So really contact these medical schools, speak with their Office of Admissions, and use that to your advantage when reapplying. Next, stay involved. I know it's so tough to mope after you don't get into medical school, and I can tell you that I moped for many, many days. It was not a good time, but you have to realize you have to get back on your feet and do something during that time. Whether it's staying involved in health professions activities. I know I have a ton of friends who ended up going and trying to work for medical schools, work with health professionals, work in health community, and that adds to your application. That shows these medical schools, hey, I didn't get in this round, but you know what? I'm committed to being a doctor and I'm going to continue working at it. They want to see that. That's what they love to see on applications. And then plus, for me, I ended up being a graduate assistant football coach during one of my years where I wasn't in medical school. And that became a huge talking point during my interview because they're going to ask you, what did you do during your time off? And you have to come up with something. And it's best to do something interesting, something you're passionate at during that time so that you can create interesting, fruitful dialogue and show, hey, I'm not one-dimensional. I can do many things and show off your talents. Last tip, and I cannot emphasize this enough in your reapplication process, please, please, please apply early. And when I mean early, I mean like day number 1, your application needs to be in. And that means getting your recommendation letters sorted starting in January. Talk to the people you want writing your rec letters, whether it's the same individual or new individuals. Really talk with them early so you can have those ready to roll. Make sure you have your transcript in place. We all know how long that can take. And if you really don't have an idea and you get lost in all the details and then you're ordering your transcripts last minute, that can be a holdup. Make sure you have your MCAT scores ready. Make sure you have everything in place so that whether AMCAS or TMDSAS, you are ready to roll on day 1 because sometimes some people will go, well, I'll just wait a week. When you wait a week and everyone else that applied early, we all know that can get that 9-week processing period. And then all of a sudden your application isn't even getting processed until July. You don't want to be in that boat. When it hits the opening day, send it off and do not worry. Along with that, apply to more schools. Lots of people go, well, I'm only going to apply to these schools in Texas, in the east side of Texas, or I'm going to only apply to schools on the West Coast. You will go to medical school wherever you get accepted. I've learned that, and a lot of my fellow students have learned that. Please don't hold back the areas and the schools that you apply to. Every medical school is special in their own way, and especially in the United States, you're going to receive a top quality medical education no matter where you go. So if it was up to me, I would definitely apply to more schools if I were redoing my application process again, because at the end of the day, maybe one of those schools looks at your application and really loves you for who you are, and they could be the one that accepts you. So don't apply to too narrow of a base of schools. I know this sucks. I know not getting into medical school is a terrible feeling, and every time I had to go through it, it was a dagger going through my heart. But at the end of the day, if you're convicted to go to medical school, then nothing will stop you. And I truly believe that you can take the necessary steps to go to medical school. Just take a moment and think to what is driving you to go to medical school. Maybe it's a family experience or something that you've gone through personally. Maybe you shadowed a doctor that truly changed your life. But really think about that moment that has brought you to the field of medicine and embrace it in this process. Use it as a springboard into next cycle to help create an application that if anyone looked at it, they couldn't deny you. If you do that, I have so much faith that you will get into medical school the next application cycle. And trust me, I'll be rooting for you. So until next time, best of luck.